go out and scavenge whatever you can find, you go out and hunt for whatever you can find. The problem for the Donner Party is they get buried up to their ears in snow.
Right.
So at some point, it is not possible, and then you have to start
Yeah.
eat what you got.
Well, I had read recently that I believe it was a man that was last standing. What do you think had to go through either his or maybe his wife's mind for him to be the last one standing, for him to not sacrifice himself to save somebody else?
I don't know. That would be tough.
Right.
I think it would be almost unbearable to be the final survivor, regardless of gender, regardless of race, regardless of anything, to be the last one. That seems like a tremendous amount of survivor's guilt.
Right.
And I mean, even if he survives, not because he's somehow, smarter, or not because he somehow manipulated the circumstances and took advantage of other people and ate them or anything like that. If it's just kind of the luck of the draw that he is the last one, I think that would be horrible. I think that would be horrible. I don't know how you would live with that.
It's almost like saying I was the last one surviving a plane crash. It's my fault.
Yeah, that's exactly, well, you know what survivor's guilt is. It's
Yeah.
like, why am I spared,
Right.
right? And I would think in this circumstance where it's such an intimate circumstance, I mean, you are stuck with people that you know, you are stuck with your family. There comes a point at which you have to start making these really hard decisions. It would be unbearable.
Right.
It would be unbearable.
And
Yeah.
going back to the start of the circumstances, obviously there was the snow and obviously there was a lack of supplies. Do you know if there was really anything else that could have stacked up on those things to where they got into this situation?
I think the biggest problem is that they very foolishly took this route that no one had ever taken with wagons.
In the winter.
In the
nonetheless.
winter, exactly, over the Sierra Nevadas. My understanding is that they were looking for a shortcut, and the person who advocated taking this said it is a shortcut and it will be fine.
Right.
And I suspect that, I would imagine that all wagon trains have a limit on the kinds of supplies and the amounts of supplies that they can bring. And that the expectation is that as they move across the continent, that they'll go out and hunt and women will forage and they will find things. But when you get stuck in the snow,
There's really nothing you can do.
not when we're talking about this kind of snow,
Right.
so much heavy, wet snow that you can't move in it. They are probably also not really dressed for it.
Yeah.
It was a very foolish thing. Had they gone on the Oregon Trail, as almost every other wagon train did, they would have had a much better shot of being fine.
Right.
They did not want to do that.
And also going on that is, assuming by how this ended up, I have this feeling that they were planning for the best, not the worst.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely, and I think part of that is, again, it's about this romantic notion of this period, that there's a certain sense of adventure to this, that you subdue this continent. There is lots of opportunity in California.
It's our land, we might as well go.
Yeah, and that this is a divinely ordained circumstance, that we fill up this entire continent. Now, I don't know a great deal about the individuals, but in this very optimistic, almost romantic kind of context, if you have people who are generally really optimistic and they say things like the glass is half full and all of that, they may not think to plan for the absolute worst.
They're gonna wanna plan for the bare minimum that they have.
Well, you know, some people look at the glass half empty, no matter what.
Right.
Other people look at the glass half full, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have people running this and planning this who are inherently optimistic in their perspective and in the way they look at the world, they may never have imagined they would end up in this circumstance.
Right.
And so they didn't plan for it. Now, the other side of that is, what is it you think that they should have done or should have prepared or should have brought that they didn't? I don't know. How, you have to think about how much you can reasonably haul in a wagon. And how much these horses can reasonably carry. And people are bringing all sorts of domestic products, right? Their furniture and all that stuff.
Gadgets.
Yeah, but those are the trinkets and gadgets that people need to feel like it's home,
Right.
right? And so they, I'm sure, culled the whole household down and only brought the things that they believed they really needed.
Nobody expects that they're gonna be at this point where they need to make these decisions.
Exactly, exactly. But yeah, when you're stuck out in the middle of nowhere, or like the Donner Party buried under snow, all of a sudden this stuff doesn't seem like it's very important.
Right.
It's only important when you're thinking in the context of starting a new life and what kinds of things do I need so that it feels like home, right?
Right.
Grandma's dresser and my favorite dress and my wedding dress and
My favorite blanket.
my favorite blanket and those kinds of things, right?
Right.
So the only thing I can think of that they should have done or could have done differently to get a better outcome is not go that way.
Yeah.
Because that is the root of their problem. And I'm a planner, and I'm not quite a glass half empty kind of gal, but I do think about those things.
Right.
And so it is hard for me to understand people who say, two people rode across this trail. They say it's doable and it's a shortcut, and we'll get to California before bad weather.
Right.
We're gonna do it. It's hard for me to imagine that there are people who say, yeah, we're gonna do it. Because I'm thinking, wagons haven't been across it before. Can you trust these two men? Do you really know that they know what they're talking about? But I think given this larger context,
Given the circumstances.
and obviously this says something about the inherently optimistic nature of at least the people in charge, that they're not worried about it.
Right.
And then also going back to the main problem is, even if they did go on